Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we had, at the very tail end, Jeb and Bob apparently die. They are not flagged as missing yet in the astronaut office, so I want to go check on what's going on with them. So we're going to hop over to the core module probe, and our survey satellite is, of course, going to continue to head over to Duna, but for the time being, I want to check to see what's going on here. They shouldn't actually be dead, technically, because we should still have food. It was food running out that allegedly killed them. But we were making food, and we should be food positive unless there's another problem here. So let's investigate, and let's see if there is another problem here. Let's hop over to here. I'm not seeing them here, so yeah, we're seeing crackening occurring, obviously. But that's reasonably fine for right now. What I want to do is I want to check in here. Yeah, look at this. There's lots of food. 177.242. So they should not have died from lack of food. We have lots of carbon dioxide and oxygen is running low, but they shouldn't be dead right now. That's the thing. I'd like it if we weren't crackening. And to be clear, we are going to solve this Kraken problem. I know how I'm going to solve it. I'm not going to say just yet because I want that to be a little bit of a surprise, but I am going to solve this Kraken problem by removing the wheels and the hydraulics, but those are necessary for hooking it up. So for right now, we just have to live with it, but that's not a long-term thing. So that's okay for now. Now, I want to head down over here. Our main problem right now is we're not going to have a source of carbon dioxide, right? I'm going to go ahead and, let's see. Yeah, nitrogen and oxygen, there's nothing here. Wait a second. The air filter can be used to get water from the atmosphere here. There's no oxygen here, but that's okay. We don't even need to get water then. I'm still going to do a water survey. But if that's the case, we're getting a lot of water here. Like, look at how much water we're getting from the atmosphere. So that solves our water problem. Then you can make the argument, well, our problem at this point is carbon dioxide, right? We need to be able to get carbon dioxide, and we kind of get carbon dioxide from our farms. Missing waste for our algae farm. Okay, yeah, but we'll have that waste. So for now, this is fine. I'm going to stop farming on the greenhouse container, and we're going to stop cultivation on the algae farm. And we're just going to let this go for now. Now, I want to hop back, and we're going to need to go back over here. There we go. The crackening will be solved, but that definitely solves our water problem. That's intriguing. I had no idea that the air filter could be used with this additional set of mods to pull water from the atmosphere. That's surprising to me, actually. I wouldn't expect there to be much water in this atmosphere. Well, we don't need to worry about Jeb and... It was the engineer, so it would have been Bill. So Jeb and Bill are currently in a hibernating state in the colony, and they need to be rehydrated. So next time we get Kerbals there... Well, actually, no, they shouldn't be rehydrating. At all, should they? They should just still be there. But yeah, they're currently flagged as missing. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to hop into the tracking station. And we are going to run the survey satellite. We don't actually need it, apparently. That's really good to know, because there's apparently just tons of water in the atmosphere. We're pulling like 1.5 water per second from that atmosphere right now. That's insane. So water isn't a concern, but I still want to get this satellite put up here. So let's go ahead and warp forward to this burn point. That's going to be 21 seconds. And the next thing that we need to send out is going to be our smelting module, because that will help us generate more carbon dioxide. That's our core issue right now in reality. Jeb and Bill are still there. They're still alive. It was a bug that the game categorized them as dead because we did not run out of food. It's just not properly updating the food. So we'll have to keep that in mind, and we might have to teleport them out there a few times, but that's absolutely okay for now. So for the moment, 30 seconds, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. We were not set to the node. Let's try that again. We'll just turn back. Smart ASS wasn't on correctly. Okay, we appear to have a small drift here, possibly due to the weight of this antenna. That's okay. Boy, this is really drifting a lot. Let's turn our gimbal limit up to 100. That should solve it. Now we can compensate for that. Okay, so that'll be fine. And cutting this throttle a little bit, but I do want to hit this fairly accurately. It's not going to be perfect under any stretch of the imagination. Okay, let's see where we are. So we need to head over to Duna here. Focus view on Duna, thank you very much. And is this putting us in a polar orbit? Well, it's not quite as polar as I'd like it to be. So that's pretty close. Let's throttle this down. So thrust limiter down to 0.5%. There, that'll do. So that looks good, and now our next move is to come up over here and do a retrograde burn like this. And we should be fine for life support. We have no real way to model that, but we should be fine for life support for a fairly large duration at this point, now that we have access to additional water. The water was the main concern. Remember, the Kerbals generate carbon dioxide and waste, so that's absolutely fine. They would generate that over time if they were, present. And the main issue at this point is we don't quite generate enough carbon dioxide to be, perpetually set up. That is absolutely a concern right now. But we do create enough carbon dioxide to run our farm for a while, and then run our oxygen converter for a while, then our farm for a while, so on and so forth. So with that in mind, I think that we would have enough time to do this setup and get another module out there before we would run out of life support in a hypothetical scenario. And that's exactly what I want to do. So we're going to warp our way forward here. We've got a fair amount of warping to do, about 270 days until we arrive at our destination, which is, of course, up over here. So that looks fine for now. We'll make our way in, we'll get this set up, and we'll figure out where the water on the surface is. But if we can just pull the water out of the atmosphere, then that's great. I'm content with that. That means that we don't actually need the wheels. So that's interesting. So I guess we should talk about what my plan is for defeating the Kraken. My plan for defeating the Kraken is simple. I don't want to have the Kraken be a long-term issue. So once we're in a place where we're content with our position, which wasn't going to be now, but now that we have those air filters running, I mean, yeah, here is fine then. I have no concerns with here. So what we're going to do then is we're just going to start dismantling the wheel setup. Well, first we need to set up a support underneath each one of the modules, probably on each end. That's probably going to be like modular girder segments or something along the lines of that. So we're going to start this burn here in about 50 seconds, and we'll just have it sitting up on blocks, essentially, that are rigidly attached, and we'll get rid of the wheel assemblies, probably recycling those. But we don't have any recycling modules out there yet. That's something that we're going to need to bring. So that's understood. We're going to be starting our burn in about 30 seconds here, but this is actually fake because we need to move up our thrust limiter and warp forward a little bit further. So as you can see, we're quite high up here right now. And this is absolutely a polar orbit. So that looks good. This is going to be a 12-second burn. And this timing is certainly intriguing, but it's fine. Okay, so we've got about 50 seconds here. 40, 30, 20, 10, and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Also, just strutting them together might help the Kraken quite a bit if we don't have joint weakness at those docking ports. So that's also something to think about. Okay, let's just slow this down a little bit. We're not in a perfectly circular orbit, but we don't really need to be. We just need to be in a stable orbit here, and this is probably good enough. So let's perform this orbital survey. Yep, we've got a connection here, and we're in a good orbit for that. So now we've got our science here. So this is currently in no resource. This is ore. This is liquid helium-3, which there is none. Alumina. Exotic minerals, gypsum, we don't care about most of that. Hydrates, we would care about. Can we see it from here? Yeah, so we can see that we're in an area where there's not many hydrates, but there would be some up over here, down here. We could have made that journey probably theoretically, but with the CKAN, it would have been really, really exciting. Metallic ore, there's plenty of in all of these equatorial regions. No issues there. Minerals, we don't really care about. Monazite, we don't care about. Oxygen. If we wanted to mine some oxygen, apparently there's reachable oxygen there. That's interesting to note. Rare metals, rock, silicates, spodumene, substrate, uraninite, ammonia, carbon dioxide here. So there's not really much carbon dioxide available, but we're going to make our own. I'm not concerned about that. Methane, none. Nitrogen, none. And then this is where water is available. That makes sense. It's mostly in these polar regions, so it's not directly at the poles, though, which is interesting. But yeah, mostly these polar regions. So that's absolutely understood. Water would have been pretty unreachable for us. We would have had to go for hydrates and go for it that way, but this is fine. We can just pull the water from the atmosphere, and I'm absolutely content with that. So we can see we've got plenty of metal ore, plenty of ore, and yeah, we don't really need this here, technically, but we should have done this before we picked a landing site, just to be clear. So we'll head on back to the Space Center. This is now where we want it to be, and we need to get our next module heading up. So let's go ahead and do that. And we're going to have to get Jeb and Bill back at some point. The question is, what point is that? Well, we'll be much more sustainable soon. Maybe we wait to put them back until we're basically not going to be shipping parts from Kerbin anymore, so that we just don't have to deal with the fact that the life support doesn't properly update. So basically, you might ask, what does that mean? At what point will we be at that point? Well, if we open up our kind of prototypical colony here, you can see this is what we would be trying to build as our initial build out. And we've already got a good chunk of this. We've got these here, and that's all well and good. The next thing that we'd be sending looks like it would be sending the centerpiece here and sending the rocket parts storage, or no, it would be the smelter component. So we want to send the smelter component, and we want to be able to have the CO2. Now, the main problem that I foresee here is all of this storage down underneath. If we extend these out to the maximum, that's not a lot of clearance, is it? So that's a bit of a concern. And I would also like to bring this junction. The question is, how would we go about doing that? How would we go about hooking this up? We might have to disassemble the junction once we get there, reassemble the junction like this, and then dock it here. That would be a doable thing. Yeah, that would definitely be doable. That would be interesting. So, as far as the situation with getting these on the ground goes, right? What I'd like to do, and we can see that we're a little bit, I think, I don't think these heights are quite what we're looking at in reality, but we'd be looking at changing this to be something like cubic octagonal strut right there, and then we'd be sitting on that, or, you know, something similar. Some sort of a module here, and maybe we could eventually lift the whole thing up, but it's going to be a heck of a CKAN. There's no doubt about that. So for now, we need to get this guy over there. I would like to bring over the junction as well. And to that end, we probably want to have the KCC recycling bin along with it. We're not going to do this for like any other junctions. We'll build other junctions on site. In fact, we're almost to the point now where we can build all of this on site. I think we will want to bring the workshop. But this, I think we can build on site, and any other junctions we can build on site, other modules we can build on site. That's all things that we can do. And we also want to have all of our like workshops and such be fully staffed here. So that's all something to think about. We're going to need a lot of Kerbals. That'll mean more on the life support. We'll almost certainly need more life support. That's 100% guaranteed, and that's okay. We'll build that on site though. So I want to save this for now as the smelter module. We're going to reroute this, and I'm going to have this be the root part. And then we're going to get rid of this out over here. We don't need it, although I clicked the wrong docking port there. Okay, get rid of this. And then grab here. There we go. We don't need that. And then grab here. We don't need any of this. So there's our smelter module at this point, and we need to try to lift this, and this is going to be very interesting because we've got these underslung tanks. The underslung tanks are going to cause us some issues. For one thing, I can see that they're a bit offset here. So let's see about just snapping this guy over a little bit here, and then over here. And then I think it needs to go this way, just a smidge. Yeah, something about like that. We'll see about snapping these into position, and they're going to need to be adjusted as well, it looks like, but we'll just snap them to grid. And then this guy can actually move out over here, and that's more centered. So that looks good. At this point, the underslung tanks are underslung, and that'll be fine for the time being. But we are going to have a low amount of distance here, right? So we're going to be a bit concerned about that. And what are we going to attach the sky crane and the rocket to? The tanks are going to make that awkward. So let's take a look at our center of mass here. Interesting. So the center of mass is right here. If we were to do a radially attached docking port up over here, what would that end up looking like? So we would do a docking port junior. I just want to get this lined up here. Right in that center of mass, right there. But down here, we have a much more significant problem, which is basically that we have to attach it here. Or, well, we need to attach it more like here. I can't get the camera directly underneath that node, but I think that's close enough. So from here, we're going to have to extend it out, and this is probably going to create a joint weakness. So we're going to need to have a docking port that connects in like that. I'm concerned about detaching that. We'll see how that goes. We might actually need to move these guys slightly further apart. That won't change our center of mass significantly. So we can do something like that to just build up a little bit of space here. And I think that's absolutely fine for now. So from there, we could run like a fuel tank adapter. Is that clipping in? It is. So I'm wondering if maybe there's a like longer fuel tank adapter that we can do for that. That's too big up at the top. Our issue is that this widens out too much, right? I would like it to stay a little narrower. So in that case, this one starts too wide. So let's just search for adapter. And let's see, that's that fuel tank adapter there. That's a Rockamax brand. We could try an NCS brand adapter that's a little longer than I'd like it to be, and it only carries liquid fuel. So if we were going to use this, I would actually use this exclusively as an adapter and just remove the fuel from it. And then we put a C7 brand adapter right there. And it would be something along the lines of this. And then, of course, the sky crane would go up here, which we can put in a moment. But for now, it can be something along the lines of that. Is this 2.5 meter? Yes. Okay. So that seems fine. We can put in something along the lines of a poodle here, and then I would bring along some 4 decouplers here, although I'm going to do it in groups of 2. So I'm going to do 2 here and 2 here. There we go. And then we'll bring additional fuel along in those spots. So 2 there and 2 there. So our center of mass is significantly lower. That's understood. I'm going to just snap that up a little bit. And same with this. We'll just try to get those at approximately the same elevation plane. So that looks good, and then we'll put in these guys. Then, of course, we'll need to strut this together. So that's going to be struts going here and here. And then struts going here and here. And we'll, of course, need some fuel lines here, too. We'll probably want more struts than that. But for now, this will do. So I'm going to do fuel lines going in there, into the center core. And then fuel line going like that. So as before, we're going to have this be, and I want these to be spaced out a little bit. We're going to have this be about like this. And this is, of course, going to need to go down here. So these 2 tanks will pop off first, then these 2 tanks will pop off, and that looks good. This is probably going to be wildly overkill on the DV, but I'd rather overkill it than underkill it. I'd like to be able to hit this fairly accurately. So from here, we can put in a decoupler there, and then we can start doing big orange tanks, of course. Just moving this up for now, and we're going to do something like this for now, probably a little bit more here. So something like this for our liftoff force. And then that's going to be a mainsail here. Now, I'm expecting that this is going to be pretty low thrust to weight at this time. So this is, of course, going to go down here. And this decoupler would go here, I believe. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. Okay, so we'd be at 0.64 thrust to weight here. That's quite expected. So at this juncture, we're going to want to run a strut connector from approximately here to about here, and similarly from here to about here. I just want to make sure we've got a decently strong joint there. And then I do want to run some struts from about here to up here, and then similarly from here to somewhere around here, like that. That will hopefully make it relatively rigid. But we're going to need some additional oomph here to lift this thing off, right? No doubt about that. So these are Polluxes. They're a little on the small side. We're going to be targeting Clydesdales for this. So you can see the size of these Clydesdales means that we have space for a small amount of fuel here. I'm going to go with 32s. And this is, of course, going to need to be decoupled. And I'm very concerned, as usual, about having these pop off correctly. So this is going to need probably to have some... And I just want to do this for now. But I want to put these tanks in here, like this, and then do that. And that'll approximate what we want. Okay, so that'll do for now. We can iterate on this a little bit more later. So what I want to do then is run an external fuel duct from here to here, like that. And then, of course, we want to strut this together down at the bottom. So we're going to strut this from here to here. There we go. And then it'll be something like that. But we're going to need this on both sides here. So that's absolutely something that I want to do. So I'm going to duplicate this entire stack from here. And we'll just slap that in there. Now, it looks like this kind of broke a little bit. So we're going to run the fuel duct here, and the strut is going to need to go like that. Okay, so something along those lines. Obviously, this is a little broken on the staging. The game's not entirely sure what we're trying to do here. So we're going to do this, and check that thrust to weight. 1.54, not bad, not bad. And then this looks good, but we're going to want to have some Separatrons on this. Almost certainly. So, there we go. Separatrons. So I'm going to put in Separatrons angled like this and like this. I'm going to do 2 up top. And then I'm going to do one down below. Okay, we need to do the same on this stack, which I should have done this before duplicating it, but it's okay. So we'll do a Sepratron about here and about here. And then a Sepratron about here and about... That was not the way I wanted to rotate it, but there we go. This needs to be rotated the other way. There we go. That'll make a lot more sense. So all of these Sepratrons are going to be firing here. These are Clydesdales. So we need to make sure that all of the Clydesdales are in here, but the Sepratrons, those are going to go up into this stage. So it's just going to be something about like this. And we can do a test flight of this. I'm not necessarily convinced that this is going to be all that great in terms of its flight characteristics, but that's something for next episode. We can run some tests on it. It'll probably be bendy. It'll probably have aerodynamics issues. It may have separation anxiety. We'll see. We'll see. This should be moved over a little bit, though, for sure. Okay, otherwise the Sepratrons look good. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Dark Horse, Ethan Feldman, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, Rornaz, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.